Ladies.
Let's start over.
This is Struggle Cast. That's the name of this one. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Black Astronauts Podcast Rune Review of Westworld Season 2, Episode 3, Virtu e Fortuna is what I think that
I'm sure
says.
that's incorrect.
Would you like to read it, AJ?
Let's see.
It's right there. It's right there, the one that starts with a V.
No, I think you got it. I think it was
got
what
it
you
now.
said.
Thank you. Oh, awesome. I'm so smart. Anyway, you may have noticed, excuse me, that that is not Aaron B's voice you hear on the other end.
Nope.
You may be confused. No, you're not listening to Married to Shade. This is just a very special episode of the Rune Podcast Westworld Recap. Aaron B has some things to handle, so I was able to plug in my lovely and amazing wife, who has watched every episode of Westworld with me. Was even there on that special night to watch her man look important a couple of years ago at the Westworld premiere.
Then what you shooting in the gym?
Yeah.
Is that the appropriate use of that?
You wanted to be there while I was shooting in the gym.
I said I've been with you. Either way, I watch TV, people. I watch TV, and I know Westworld stuff. So let's get into it.
You make the perfect partner to plug in. No pun or alliteration intended. Before we jump into the show, we're going to make sure we give a shout out to our Patreon patrons who make everything possible here on the podcast. We recently released a brand new logo. We finally got some T-shirts printed up. Me and AJ, as I always say when we do the Married to Shade podcast, are sitting here recording on a mixer that was made possible by the donations from our Patreon patrons. So to show our appreciation for you all, here are the names of our Patreon patrons: Shadrack C, Black Sean, Nutella is Life, Sadida H, Justin C from I Do It for Hip Hop podcast. Justin, I'm gonna see you. You gonna run my fade. I'm gonna say next Sunday. Next Sunday you gonna run this fade. DeAndre, Veggie Vixen, Ronald B, V Williams, Feeks Beard, Peter H, Pasto Chene, Felt 5, Deloya, Shlonda W, Wanga, Cameron B, Mr. Brent, Simo, Ashley G, Chonilla, Knowledge, Dre, The Disrespectful One MJ, Donald, Ophelia Ono, Teddy Funk, Charlie Snowflake, and Angela D. Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry. There's a long, awkward pause. I'm gonna edit it out. Anyway, so this is a little different for you, AJ, but what we do here is we just kind of jump right in, and we go from essentially character to character or moment to moment, and kind of talk about how we're feeling, what we're thinking, where it's going, reactions, etc. I'll start.
So you talk about the show, right?
We talk about the show.
Okay, thank you.
This is going to be different than talking with Aaron. It's okay though. It's okay though. I still love you. First, I guess since we haven't heard from you, what are your thoughts so far this season, or any thoughts you want to pull from last season?
So I wasn't expecting. So this episode really got real, and we'll get into it. But I didn't know where we were going to go. Right. So we ended last season with the massacre, and we jumped, we had two consistent timelines last season. This season we're already dealing with 3 to 4, if not more, timelines that are really defined and distinct. But I didn't know where we were going. I had high expectations while having no expectations at all. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if people were really dead, if they weren't dead. And so I am just welcoming the roller coaster that is the show this season. So you guys have reviewed the other episodes. So let's get into this episode. So this episode starts off in another park.
Yes.
You didn't remember, did you?
I did not.
You didn't remember. Look how you need me.
They couldn't see my face, but I guess since you have every right to call me out.
We start off in a park that is is it East Asian?
South, I believe it's Southeast.
Is it South?
No, South Asia. I think that's
South
just South Asia.
Asia? Okay.
Yes. India
Sorry.
is essentially what we're talking
Yes.
about.
So yeah, we're talking about India. So we start off in a park that is like really super bright, super sunny, super colorful. The lighting for the shoot or the cinematography is like different, right? Is that
like a completely
appropriate?
different show.
It feels completely different.
So let's pause for a second and talk about how we watched Westworld last night, which was with a 2-year-old in your lap and a 4-year-old in the corner watching Shrek.
Yeah, because that's our life. Because it's just struggle.
So I was completely out of it. I was like, hold on, are we watching the right thing? Because I'm like, where are we? What's going on?
It felt totally different.
Yeah.
Felt totally different. Like I am really on or paying a lot of attention to the shows that we follow, even just like the sitcoms and how shows play with lighting to evoke certain emotion and just kind of show the difference between worlds and characters and just moods and all that kind of stuff. So it was really, really interesting because this was brighter and sunnier and richer in color than any of the scenes prior in the last season.
Come through Ava DuVernay with all your color theory knowledge, brand new. Where is this coming from?
You know, I watch a little TV.
Yeah.
So it was really, really, really captured your attention, really kind of jarring in an intriguing way because you're like, I've never seen this before. Okay, so it's bright. We're in South Asia. We're in India. And we have this couple. So we see this couple. They meet while sitting on like outside sort of this huge home, like at a banquet or something like that, right? Yeah. So they're sitting outside and, they do some flirting at a table, and that flirtation takes them back to a room where they immediately question if the other is a host or the human incarnation of themselves. Right. Like, so it's obvious that they have a relationship, but there is a sense of distrust in the environment around them, and initially a distrust of each other because they realize that their reality is not really real in this place. Right. So they, begin to kiss and embrace and do all this kind of stuff. And essentially the woman says, before we go any further, I got to make sure you are who you are. So she pulls out the gun. And so if you've been watching the show for a while, you understand that the bullets in these guns are probably like the only flaw of the show, right? Because what we know,
so much that it's a flaw.
Ahead.
It's that it's like, it's hand waved. They hand wave the explanation. Is what we
because we know that these are high tech bullets that know not to shoot, not to injure, not to penetrate the skin of humans, but will like mess the host all up.
Just blow they shit all up. Like movie style blood spews.
So in this moment, in this particular timeline, sort of, this is pre the host going rogue.
Well, babe, let me just pause you because we don't want to retell.
Okay.
A scene by scene.
Okay, so what do we want to do?
What we want to do is what is your reaction to that scene as a whole? So it's very clear that they put a lot of effort into this scene, especially the interesting sexual tension it brought to me, like interesting feelings of like, what is sex in like? Now I don't want to say conquest because that's very male centered. But I don't think that has to be male-centered.
I was about to say, why is a conquest male-centered?
It's a word I get from a locker room.
But what are you saying? What is sex when you don't know if you're having sex with a real person or a robot?
Exactly. What is sex when you don't know?
To some people, it's exciting.
Right. You see what I'm saying?
It's called mystery.
But so they had that. So like that was important for them to point out because I'm pretty sure that's the first time two humans have been depicted to have sex in like the entire show. And they made the highlight.
What stuck out to me is like the, what is it called? Uncanny Valley kind of thing.
Stuff.
So in previous seasons and at the beginning of this season, even though things are like all over the place, people haven't really like the hosts have been seen as cool, but we haven't seen anybody feel necessarily uncomfortable with the distorted reality of being in this world that is majority AI beings walking around, right? And so this couple, it was really interesting to me that they made it a point to show their uneasiness, right? So nobody's shooting anybody up. Their hosts haven't went rogue and are not off programming as far as we know in this scene, but we do feel immediately that they are uncomfortable, at least the woman. Like, she's very, very distrusting of this park. Now, the other thing about it is, like, I immediately said, and maybe it was the colors used, I was like, I would go to that park. So the Westworld, right? Because we don't know the names of these other parks, but Westworld, the park we know the name of, the TV show's namesake, like it was never attractive to me. The show is hella attractive, but I'm like, okay, well, I really go to this park, and I don't know why when I think Western and things like that, I think like racism.
No, you know why? Because of racism.
Yeah,
and like
so
an absence of like effective statewide or federal laws against lynching.
Yeah, so I feel insecure. So I wouldn't go. But this park, I was like, I would go. However, the characters are immediately like, yeah, it ain't that cool to be here. So so that was interesting.
So yeah, so and it reveals the big thing about how many parks do we have? That was park 6. So like we started.
So was that park 6?
Yes, they announced it. So they announced it actually last episode when the tiger popped up on the shore, that the tiger was from park 6. So we have at least 6 parks, 3 of which we've seen: Westworld, Samurai World, and Asia World. Whatever.
Yeah, because we don't really know what this park is called.
We don't know what it's called.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves with Samurai World, even though we saw hosts for Samurai World.
We saw hosts
in
for
another.
Samurai World.
So we need to think. What, did we see any other hosts?
Well, no. So at the end of this episode, we saw a charging samurai. Remember?
No, but I'm saying in previous. So there was a scene in like last season.
Where
season
they
walked through.
Yeah. No, it was. It was a season finale.
Was the season finale where they walked through? No. Was that it? Were they fighting through?
Yes.
I feel like it was earlier in the season where we went someplace where there are several hosts. But I could be wrong.
Yes,
I could be wrong. But I'm trying to think back. We need to go back and look at that and see if we saw glimpses of any hosts that speak to the other parks. But yeah, it was the insecurity. So now we leave there. So
no, we're not going chronologically, babe. We're not going chronologically. We're going piece by piece, space by space.
This is just straight review anarchy.
This is straight review anarchy, yes. Because we don't want to rehash the story to people that saw the episode last night.
Okay, so it's whatever moves
we want to literally whatever moves you.
Okay, so at the end of the episode, we saw a samurai. That moved me.
Yes,
that moved me. And now, since I don't have to stay in any order, I'm just gonna go straight there.
What about the samurai, babe? What was your immediate reaction? It was beautiful.
It was just like, oh shit! Like it wasn't like beyond that. I didn't know what to say. So I'm like, okay, it's snowing. Obviously they're somewhere because we've never seen snow before.
Right.
We've never seen in Westworld. It's always like sunny, dusty, hazy skies. Right. But we've never really seen a variation of weather.
The characters together there are Maeve. I'm just gonna call him Esteban. I don't know if that's racist.
It probably is.
And then I'm just going to say British guy because I don't know his name either.
So we have we have a programmer who is in host clothes.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. The British guy's
a programmer in host clothes. And then we have 2 of the, we have
the
host.
You talking about the host or the cleaners?
Cleaners. Yeah, we have cleaners.
Felix and the other dude whose name I don't remember. And they've been wandering around for a second. It doesn't really like Felix. Well, it might have been because I was like paying attention to our son at the time. I don't actually remember how the hell Felix got there. I know he was chained up. Another guy had a grenade on his neck. But so they were
just in the in headquarters.
Okay,
and but they came across them.
Yeah, so they come through, and we got samurai heads being pulled out the snow, and then all of a sudden, there's a dude with a katana, and what we don't see his face, we don't see his body, but we see his silhouette, and he's just running towards the camera.
And that's how it ends.
And that's
so
how
beautiful.
It is just
so
great.
beautiful. It just made me know that this was gonna be okay. Because there's so many layers and there's so many places they can take it. But I'm going to tell you, so Maeve, I think she's still on the storyline that she is going to find her daughter. Right. Like, that's her whole thing. So I think she has an idea of where her daughter is. I think right now the greater story that they are working through as characters collectively is Maeve has an idea of where her daughter is, and they're trying to help her find this random spot in the park, right? Which is why they were wandering. It somehow it bothers me. So while that scene was awesome, it bothers me that the host still cling to their storylines. So like Dolores, so if we back up a little bit, we see Dolores throw some hosts under the bus and having them engage with the security team of the park. Sacrifices. Yeah, just sacrifices them. They line up. You think they're going to be able to retreat, and then the guys just come after them and just like blow them apart. But she is distracted because she comes across her dad, and like she's still clinging to her father, like wanting him to be saved. And my reaction is like, he's not your dad, and you're so aware. So here's she's so aware, but yet like
for her even more so. It doesn't
clinging to the programming.
So for Maeve, it made some sense because Maeve's wanting to find her daughter is, at least ostensibly speaking, an act of resistance against her programming. Because she found, says, you know what? No, I keep having dreams about my daughter. I have emotions, regardless of whether or not they're real. I feel them, so I'm going to find my daughter. So for her, it makes some sense. For Dolores, aka Wyatt, aka like supervillain in this show thus far, aka like she's like a mix between Cersei's and Roose Bolton, like Ramsay Bolton. She's like off the chain with her shit right now.
Yeah, she is.
Her wanting to have her father back makes less sense because like she's supposed to be super woke. She's literally hashtag woke.
And she literally is. And she's now sacrificing her own kind. And she said, you know, everybody's not meant to survive in this episode to another host. So it's kind of like, okay, so you know everybody's not meant to survive. You obviously just don't feel like this collective power to the host people vibe really because you're letting them get killed, right? You know, so I don't really get why you're now slowing down for your dad. But let's talk about, so her dad, you know, is there and they find him, and it's really creepy. Has this real like sinister, like weird moment from the stamp, like as an actor. Like, this guy really does an amazing job.
But he also had to be having a lot of fucking fun because he got to go from like feeble weirdness to goofy gospel
to
proselytizing,
like serious, sinister,
to evil villain to like cult leader.
So let's talk about what we think his program is.
Oh yeah, so we will give that quick nugget is that. So one of the more intense moments.
now we tell the scene.
Yes.
We're not gonna,
go ahead. Do what you were doing. We're gonna do what I'm doing, which is better. We do have a moment. The most intense moment of this episode probably is Arnold, who is still playing this double agent game, looking through whatever the father's name is, character's brain to figure out what's inside of him that is so important that they have to get him out the park. Because that is, if you go back to episode 1, what Tessa Thompson's character was trying to get done. They weren't going to send a real military troop to fix things until that character, that host, was out of the park and recovered. And then they gave us a flashback at the beginning of this episode to remind us that something was put there in the first place. So he's very, very important, but we don't know why. We got hints last episode that maybe it's like spy data, but then I got the vibe this episode and maybe even like the next episode. So the preview for the next episode didn't give us a ton, but it showed that the little brain cups that are in the host where they had a bunch of them lined up and they were red instead of white. And so it leads me to believe that maybe they're trying to plan some straight up like body snatcher shit, which would be.
So so that maybe is akin to what I was thinking. So I was thinking that this particular host has been used in some sinister government plot plan. Like this host has been somebody's body double, if you will. That this host has, because of it, a storyline that speaks to some government conspiracy, right? Because if the host is gonna stand in for somebody, the host has to be programmed with all of with like their backstory. So the host has the affectations and the postures and the recollection of that person, at least in a way that's passable. So I'm like, maybe this host was like some government official or some important, business person or something like that. He definitely had a villain moment in there, or some like creepy moment.
Like he might have been Wyatt at some time. I don't know if I got that from the first season. I feel like I heard that. Like at the first season. Well, no, he had a preacher character he played before. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It's hard to say. But either way, something's inside him that is going to be. That clearly is the
Bernard's mind.
Blue Bernard's mind. It's also something that Dolores, even though she doesn't seem to know it's him, she knows that something exists that she quoted as a weapon in the last episode, and so it seems to me that is what he has, whatever
Maybe
that
so.
is.
I'm not really big on the weapon storyline, even though it's here, right? It's a real thing because. Well, we talked about it, or it was talked about in last episode. But so part of me does not want the show to jump the shark. I don't want a scandal moment.
This show can't.
And I'm scared that if like they're using host physically as like weapons, it just kind of becomes kind of whack.
This season has completely jumped the shark, but it's great. Like, so one of the things, you probably haven't listened to any of the other recaps, but one of the first things I did was compare this to see the last season of Game of Thrones, and I think me and you both agreed that although last season of Game of Thrones was great at times, there were some times where you were like, "What are y'all doing?"
Like I feel like they had to rush some things.
Yeah, they did. They clearly could have made 10 episodes, but they decided to make 7 for like a reason I don't understand because they rushed a ton of stuff. Right. Mm-hmm. Now they're taking a whole year and a half off, whatever. This show is doing the same. But so to make up for the fact that they were rushing things, they said, we're going to turn everything up to 10. Daenerys and Jon Snow are going to meet in the 2nd episode and fuck in the 7th episode. And dragons going to fucking burn people. And the sand snakes are all going to get killed in one night. Like, just, yeah. And it was cool. Oh, I forget about the snowboard. Anyway, so in the first 3 episodes, we have 7 different timelines in effect. We have a bunch of gunfights. The man in black is picking health packs out the walls and shit. So it's completely jumped the shark and left. Like the first season was a subtle, very dense sci-fi story.
Yeah, the first season was like the training mode. Right. So if you play video games, you like what I'm about to do here?
Look at you.
If you play video games, you know how you have to play through like the training tutorial. Yes, where it's like, okay, press this button, go up, press this button. So the first season was like conditioning us and setting some like a framework for the world. And now that we understand the world, we understand what a host can do. We understand certain technologies. We understand now it's like now they can just scribble and paint and go all outside the lines because we already have the framework.
Yeah, it went from like semi Star Trek in terms of like how loaded the sci-fi was, combined with all these philosophical elements and questions, to a full-blown fucking anime. It is basically a live action anime at this point. but it's still great. I give them props because they completely jumped the shark with Dolores. Dolores is a completely different character with like no sense of like scope for what she's doing or a world or a character. Let's talk about how they set up a conflict between Dolores and Teddy. So we know we're pretty sure Teddy dies before this is all over because he was in the pool, the lake at the end of the first episode. Remember?
No, I'm not remembering
You remember that. So at the end of the first episode, when Arnold, remember this is Arnold of the present.
Yes.
2 weeks later. 2 weeks later is with all the military people, and they're riding with him through the park. He goes to the lake, and all the hosts are floating in the lake. Teddy's one of them. They close up on his face.
So I missed that, or I'm not recalling it right now.
Yeah.
But, I think but that's no shocker because we knew. So we see him. She challenges him to kill a host as she disposes of them, and he can't do it.
Yeah.
And we're not surprised because he's not like operating on any storyline per se.
But he's still the character
he definitely is still, his character, his like core programming of who he is, his good guy on the side of right. Sort of
with a dark
sort
past.
Of base is still very present, and Dolores sees that, and so I think they're not going to rock together. So now we know. That's for sure. Sorry, I'm yawning. Don't want to yawn in you guys' ear.
And she just made it into this adorable dance. It was great. So Teddy failed to do that. And she watched the whole thing, and like that's clearly going to jump back up. So Dolores is definitely not built for the lane she's building for herself. She doesn't she's too cutthroat because she didn't have to kill. Like she could have got Arnold to bring all the military dudes back to life or something.
Yeah,
because that was a
I
wasted
think that
tool.
was just something for us. That was like a little gift. I think we have to slow down. So I don't want to personally see battle after battle between people and the host. That personally is not interesting to me. That was
not what this show was about.
Yeah. So I think that was
battles
just like
last season?
No. Well, I mean, last season it ended with the
right. And there were some fights last season, but there was no
with the first
a
interaction.
person we were watching the show with immediately thought to himself, "Oh, I wonder how this is gonna compare in scope to the Game of Thrones battles." And I immediately said, it can't have the same level of tension. Because guns and swords are just naturally much more dramatic than guns, and it was very clear. Although there were some cool story beats hit during the battle, it just didn't have a whole lot of oomph.
So what has now happened? So let's talk about Maeve. And Maeve used to have, she had the superpower.
That shit did
of being
not
like
work.
a programming master, where she could just like steal the host, which obviously gave her a hella confidence. And now it's not working. So we see the Native American host.
Right. Just straight ignore her ass.
Just ignore her. And but their behavior and their posture is telling that maybe something's going on. Maybe their programming is different.
Maybe they're so as a part of building appropriate quote unquote Native Americans, they were built with a certain level of spiritual instinct because that was
maybe they're on they're on the border of the park, so maybe they're like a safeguard. Maybe so if I'm thinking if I'm designing a park like this, I'm going to maybe they're like host security
or better yet, here's some video game design philosophy for you just to increase your acumen here. So if you have a video game and you want the player to stay within a certain boundary, and you don't want to just straight up build a wall or in most cases an invisible wall that they can't cross, you'll put in a piece of the game that makes it impossible for them to go until they get to a certain level. So like if I don't want you to go into this particular part of the forest, then there's going to be level 55 wolves there, and you can't beat those wolves until you're past level 55. So that's kind of what the Indians represent.
Yeah.
But also remember in the first season, excuse me,
Native Americans.
The Native Americans also had dolls that looked like the
Maze.
Not the maze. They had dolls that looked like the orderlies, the cleaners. Remember? That's how Maeve first started putting it all together. She saw a doll that one of the Native American girls was holding a doll that looked like one of the cleaners, and it was like she started putting it together. She was seeing that in her dreams. So there's definitely something about the Native Americans deliberate.
Yeah,
it's not
so
just a glitch.
their programming is definitely different. So that'll be exciting to
cool
to
moment
see.
with Maeve, unrelated. But the show taking a moment to breathe and re-put in its philosophical underpinnings was when the British guy was watching Maeve and Esteban kind of like bond for a moment. And he was like, whoa, what the fuck are y'all doing? Y'all shouldn't be doing this. You love Isabella
Isabella, something, yeah.
And you're alone. You're both supposed to be alone. And they have this moment where they're able to like profess their agency, right? And he's like, me and May figured your crap out, and we love each other, and da-da-da-da. But then like halfway through professing his agency, he starts repeating lines that were written by the guy, and he starts finishing the line for him. So it's this really interesting...
And well, also, Maeve then says, and that would have never worked anyway. So like then she uses her agency to realize that she's not really into the love stuff, which is in keeping with her character,
her built character,
uh-huh.
And maybe who she is.
Maybe. I mean, can you say who she is when she's AI?
Well, so the big idea of the whole show is, can we say who we are even as humans? You see what I'm saying?
Are we all in the simulation?
No, nigga,
It's
not
Kanye, right?
No.
You know Kanye said we were all in a simulation.
No, we are lucky enough to be on an off week during Kanye and Childish Gambino. We'll get all that.
That's all we'll say about that. But yeah, so I don't know.
You let me finish. So one of the undertones of the whole show is, while we're critical of the motivations of the hosts, we are all real life humans responding to biological and social
programming.
Thank you. And what is the difference? And is there a difference? Does it make a difference if there is one?
So you're going to be on the front lines of the civil rights movement for AI.
You know, we did have a conversation. We'll save this one for Married to Shade too, maybe, about the fact that there's probably going to be a robot civil rights movement before our grandchildren are adults. And
you'll be like robots, humans.
I don't know, man, because this show makes a strong.
So yeah, I mean, there is a greater metaphor for how we're programmed and the boundaries that we don't question in life, you know. But but they still need to that still needs to be worked out. That's still there right now. I'm really lost in the actual storylines of the characters and this propped up fake world. So I don't know if they want to be like really provocative and if they're really trying to get us to think deeply about the world around us and critically and
it's clear
and
that
move
they
us
wanted
to
more shoot bang drama.
Yeah, I was about to say, if that's what they want, they're losing us in the great storylines they're creating. Yeah. So start writing worse storylines, and then we'll start concentrating on
it's just
the greater metaphor.
Because the last season wasn't worse; it was just slower and more methodical about having at one point on one end this great mystery.
The last season we weren't questioning boundaries as much. So
we had no reason to.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So that underpinning, that moral, that lesson wasn't present. So that lesson is present this season, but this season is also very great. So I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. There's so much has happened for it to only be the third episode,
which is so exciting. It's so scary.
So
good.
You know, I get fearful when I think something's gonna shit his pants, and as I think about
good.
They're going really fast. Like, we didn't even get any Man in Black to this episode.
But I'm not really, like, I didn't need him. I didn't miss him.
He's become my favorite character.
I didn't miss him. I like that this episode, I think we stayed within maybe 3 different timelines. Or actually, no, 2.
One.
No, we
Was there any
went
in the
back
trailer?
and forth.
Oh yeah, we went back and forth to the main
we
two.
learned
It was
how
last episode that we had like
the
a third one
tiger
pop up.
got to the shore of Westworld because of the previous timeline, which was probably 2 weeks earlier with the other park. We also learned that without really much clarity, so I need to either rewatch or do a deep dive into how Bernard and Tessa Thompson's character got separated.
You missed
because
it?
we learned. I guess I missed it. We have kids.
It was with Peter Abernathy. He freaked out. Tess was like shit and ran, like legit ran off.
You're right.
And
You're
Bernard
right.
just stood there and put his hands up. It was interesting.
We learned that, but we learned through her
future self
that, or her current timeline self, that she now is suspicious of Bernard's intent.
That wasn't
I don't know
completely
that she
clear.
knows he's a host. Well, no, she said he keeps getting
Well,
away.
yeah, okay, she did. Throw some shade there, you're right.
Bernard. She looks at him. She side eyes him. So that's interesting. So yeah, it's just a really interesting show. I'm anxious to see how it works for Bernard, because we know from the last episode of the 2 weeks earlier timeline that he was leaking the fluid that kind of encapsulates their inner brain, whatever it is. And so he's missing that. So we didn't deal with that this episode.
No, we did. He started freaking out and
so
flipping out.
At the end we saw
Clementine knocked
switch.
him out.
Yeah, we saw like the shakes and stuff. We didn't deal with the leaky fluid.
Yeah, they didn't. Well, I think the shakes were shorthand for letting us know that the fluid was low. It's like when your car puts the oil light on or some shit.
That's
and Clementine knocked him out. We don't know what happened after that.
That's true. I mean, I just want to know, how long is he going to be able to rock with the humans as if he's a human? When is somebody going to scan his neck?
That's a good question.
We need a neck scan.
But they didn't need, like, they didn't. Oh, it's so many. Like, and when that moment finally happens, it's gonna be so good to like, yeah. That's good
does
shit.
Tessa maybe know? It's just so much.
Yeah, we really
it's
don't
so,
know. We really
it's
don't
so
know.
much.
So one thing we don't know, to wrap it up, is so on the way home, me and you got the discussion. So if there's 6 parks and we know 3, well, what are the other 3 parks? All right, so we know there's Westworld.
It's a simulation.
We know there's Westworld, Samurai World, and we're going to call it for now Asia World. Now I know two of the other 3. I feel like I know, even though I don't think they'll ever pop up in the show. I just know that these are parks in this show, and that is Medieval World,
okay,
and 80s World. So the question is so we'll put this to the listeners. What are the last 3 shows?
I don't really know about the whole 80s world.
I feel like
thing.
80s World. I feel like the 80s is.
I just feel like that's just random. Why 80s world?
Because I think the 80s are the most iconic time period for at least
But that's
Western
like an
people.
American thing.
So is Westworld.
But I mean, so the West as like for film and things like that, like the West is like a period that people are the Wild West is a period that people are fascinated with. I don't know if you're from another country, if the 80s has the same nostalgic feeling as it does for us.
I mean, yes, maybe.
I
don't want to
world.
argue too much about it on this show, because this is about the recap. But I just feel like that would be if I had to make a Westworld, and we already had Samurai World, Medieval World, Jungle World, and what am I forgetting?
I definitely think Medieval World. I want to see if there's something in Africa.
They already they're not gonna show no love to African civilizations. They got the jungle in India. They're not going to Africa.
So I
feel like they probably wanted to go to Africa, and they felt like, you know what? Let's not even pull Africa out before Twitter have our asses. Let's just go to India. Indian people ain't as woke. They're not going to hashtag
I don't know.
us.
I don't think they're worried about that. Because everything can be excused, like these are hosts. These are not real people.
Right.
I mean, it could go left, but I think there's something.
Renaissance
you have to think.
World. Boom. That's the other one.
Renaissance
World.
Okay.
I don't know. We're gonna leave that to y'all.
I'm just saying you have to think about formidable opponents. So like, okay, you have to fight your way through the West, where their guns were modern guns, but you have guns.
You got
and
street gangs in New York. You got triads and you got Asian and Latino.
This is not. We're not going to talk
mobsters.
No, they're not going to be like breaking. To get out of a situation.
It's mob world. It's mob world. It's the 20s.
Mob world.
It's the roar. It's the 20s. It's
so the 20s
through 40s.
That could be a thing. Because I'm thinking,
American
so you have gangsters.
Mad Men world.
Okay, no, I don't know.
We're gonna leave it to y'all because that was definitely tangential. But either way, so that was Westworld episode 3, season 2. This has been your host, Feet Blurman, and my lovely wife AJ filling in for Aaron B. Please check us out on blackashnets.com for all the new episodes and pretty much everything that we're doing. Check us out on Twitter at Black Astronauts Podcast. Check me out at Feet Blurman, FIQ_BLERDMAN on Twitter, the website. I don't tweet as much, but I do check my stuff regularly. Be on the lookout for all the new things that we're doing. Keep on showing support. And I think that is pretty much it. So, peace.
Peace.